All right, heavily invested, episode 3, the third video. Today's guest is Rachel. Rachel is we met through a mutual friend, and
Yes.
I think that was maybe about a year ago. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I want to
I'm
say.
actually,
Go ahead.
well, I'm trying to remember. Was it Wes and Emily's wedding that we officially met in person for the first
Yeah,
time?
I feel like that is accurate.
Yeah.
Um, and
So
that
that was a year ago.
yeah, it was a year ago, and then it was right around then that we all got involved in the same D&D campaign, and I
Yes.
think that kind of is what solidified our friendship.
Right.
And yeah, so Rachel is a phenomenal artist, despite the fact that she will say that's not true throughout this whole interview. It is a fact, and it's something that we'll talk about in this interview later for sure. But to
Oh
start
man.
off, I want to hit you with the very basic normal question. What's the first game you remember actually like investing time into?
Mm. So I gotta say, the GameCube was definitely like my main console growing up. Like, I had everything as far as like N64 and whatnot, but that era of the GameCube was probably where I played the most. And I'm looking actually at all my GameCube games right now.
I love it.
um, I did you ever play Pokemon Coliseum
I
or
did.
any?
I did.
Yes. Oh my god! Like that was probably where I, as a younger kid, really picked up on like, oh, storyline for things like
Mm,
Pokemon can actually like be more than just what's typical out of like red and green where you just catch the
right.
Pokemon and collect all the gym badges. Like this actually like went more into some of the politics, I guess, of
Yeah.
Pokemon.
Sure.
Yeah. But I mean also like Wind Waker on that was super big for me.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I GameCube is one of those consoles that there are so many I want to say like uh not genre breaking, but each like franchise or character. There's a word specific for it. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But like Link, we have Metroid, you have Mario, even Animal Crossing. Like so many of the
Mm-hmm.
games that like we see as like big titles now, I feel like really got their feet like through the door in the GameCube era.
Oh,
Um,
definitely.
and so I Pokemon Coliseum and Pokemon I want to say what is it? I think it's Gale of Darkness.
Yep,
I
I'm
think is
looking
the
at
other
it
one.
right now.
Okay, yeah,
Yep, you're good.
yeah. Um, and like both of those, I also really enjoyed because they were so different from other Pokemon games.
Yeah.
Um, and like the concept of every Pokemon game before this one of trying to catch another trainer's Pokemon was ridiculous. But
Right.
in Coliseum, that's all you did.
Right. And I was like, whoa, this is like a really interesting aspect.
Right, right.
Um, there like I think not just for Pokemon, but like a lot of different games, I liked some of their side games better. Like
Sure.
that Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. What was that
Mm.
Pokemon Ranger one?
Yes.
It came out with like the DS where it
Yep.
really focused on using a stylus. Yeah.
Yep.
And then like there was this Princess Peach centric game.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what
Do you
you're
know
talking
which one I'm
about.
talking about?
Yeah,
With
yeah,
all the
yeah.
emotions, and
Yep.
that was like, yeah, like a lot of those really interested me more than the more mainstream
Yeah.
series. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think that's a really cool concept of so many people are interested obviously by the big titles and the big names, but the
Hmm.
spin-offs I think sometimes can be even cooler. Um That's awesome.
Right. Like you get little like bonuses to those characters then.
Yeah, yeah. It makes their place in the overall story um, more enjoyable, I think.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
you see that for sure with back to GameCube. Luigi's Mansion first came out on
Yes.
GameCube, and like Luigi had nothing before that. He was just this background guy in Mario Party, Mario Kart, what
Hmm.
all the Mario games, and then he gets his own game, and now there's like a whole Luigi fan following, and it spawned
Right.
2 other Luigi's Mansion games, which is cute. It
Right.
was super cool.
We're up to 3 now on the
Yeah,
Switch, right? Yeah.
right, right. Um, yeah, so that's super cool. I'm all about world building, and I think
Yes.
that concept is huge for both the companies and the characters. It lends, I think, to the player. We have more of a feeling of reality
Hmm.
when the people that we see in the background also have their own stories going on.
Right, right. And
Um,
it's like a nice break from like no offense to Mario or
sure.
other
Yeah.
more centric characters, but it's
Yeah.
nice to have a game with Luigi or Peach or
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. So with that, I wonder what genre of games appeals to you the most. Um, for me, I'm a huge Harvest Moon fan. So I don't know. I what would you call it? Casual. I don't even
Well,
know what that game type is necessarily, but
I was actually talking to a friend about that. She was like, I like, Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley. I guess I'm more of a farmer than a gamer. Like, I which like I do like those games. I think I gotta say I've probably gotten more into like RPG and strategy. Like I got really into Fire Emblem
okay.
Awakening and the newest one, Three Houses.
Yes. Okay.
Did you play Three Houses?
Yeah, I did. I did. I've been playing Fire Emblem. I mean, as long as I can remember, Fire Emblem and Harvest Moon are my two favorite video games.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I,
Um, See, I also was like super. I feel like not late on the video game. I like played a lot as a kid,
sure.
and probably all the way up until high school, and that's where I started like, maybe like just like pressures on you, like maybe I'm getting too old to be playing this stuff. Maybe I should like
Mm,
stop for a bit. So I kind of did fall out of it, but then it was
sure.
going into college that I came back and was like, oh, it's I could be playing this. Like, why do I think I'm too old for this? So I feel like I have a lot more catching up to do on some games that I've missed.
sure.
So like I feel like a game I haven't played yet, but think I would really like is Skyrim.
Okay.
Never hopped on that train, but
Yeah.
I feel like it has a lot of the playing style and storyline that I would be very interested in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally fair. I for a while when I would have myself on some dating profiles, I always put in my little like blurb. I said I love video games and I'm never growing out of it.
Right. Right,
um,
and like
yeah.
I that's like not I listening to some of your last podcasts, like I don't think that should be like an age or like only
Yeah.
for boys type of thing.
Right.
Like
Right.
it's all just like a form of like storytelling and
Yeah.
art and it's should be fairly universal.
Right. No, I feel the exact same way. I always tell people the reason I play video games and I like video games so much is because I love a good story. And
Yes.
being dyslexic, growing up, reading was a challenge. So you can still get the majority of the story without reading,
Mm-hmm.
huge like pages of text. Because a book, everything is written down, but a video game, you're the participant in most of the story. And so
Right.
yeah, there's moments where there's cutscenes and there's text dialogue and that like lens to the story. But a game like Wind Waker, I can be invested in that game without really reading any of that dialogue.
Exactly.
I understand without any text that my sister was stolen and I want to rescue her from the kidnappers.
Right. Right.
Um, and
No,
so yeah,
I totally agree on that with as far as like video games and even like comics and stuff. I
yeah,
just preferred reading like seeing the artwork and reading it that way than just full pages of text.
yeah, yeah. Right. That's totally fair. Um, yeah. So I am for sure a Fire Emblem fan. I think same story concept. What I liked about Fire Emblem, especially the
Hmm.
earlier ones, was and they did it in Three Houses, which I really liked. Was at the end, depending on who you were able to keep alive, they would have stories like after the war.
Right.
But if a character died in game and you're playing traditional difficulty, they wouldn't have a story at the end.
See, I'm a coward and can't play it that way because I don't want to lose anyone.
Well, it's so funny because I always pick traditional difficulty, but
Hmm.
I will reset any battle if I lose a fighter. Um,
Gotcha. So
yeah.
you don't necessarily just keep pushing.
No, no, I refuse
Gotcha.
to lose a single character. So there have been many times on road trips as a kid where I'm playing on my Game Boy Advanced and I would lose a character. I'm talking like 40 rounds into a battle, a character
Mm.
dies, and I'm like, well,
Mm.
there goes an hour and a half of my day. Like, restart
No.
from the beginning.
See, that's more like I prefer playing it without that because I at least know if I lose someone in the battle, I
Yeah,
have the reassurance like, all right, they're still there.
that's so funny. Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe like a small part of me enjoyed the real aspect of like, okay, if I put this person here, are they going to get attacked by six people and die? Like that real
Mm,
strategy aspect of it. I think I enjoyed.
right.
Um, but then if you play anything harder than like traditional difficulty, it just gets ridiculous because like
I
normal troops do crazy damage and it's dumb.
right. Like I to an extent, like I understand challenging yourself, but like I
Hmm.
also want to be able to play the game and get
Right,
to the story. Like
right,
I don't
right.
want to make it near impossible for myself.
Yeah, no, I feel the same exact way.
This
Uh,
actually makes me think of did you ever play Life is Strange?
no, I haven't, but a couple people have told me that I really need to play it.
Yes, it's I've only played the first one with Max and Chloe.
Okay.
That is another game that it is like you'll it's all based on your like decisions and actions in the game. What happens. There's like a general storyline that doesn't really change, but characters that may like survive or like become your friend and this and that are all affected based on your decisions that you make. And that
Okay.
is one that is super like you can't just like
Yeah.
restart it and bring this character back. Sure, if you want to make the other decision, but it is like
Yeah.
so much you just can't have it all. Like you
Yeah.
either would have to keep this one person or lose this other person.
Yeah. I wonder, is this type of storytelling, of story-based gameplay, is that what gets you into D&D?
Yes. Yeah. Like certainly in general, if it has a good story, put that to any platform, like
Sure.
I am all for it.
Hmm.
So, Glenn, if you're listening, that's a little pat on the back for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always been impressed. I mean, I've only been in two of his campaigns, but
Well, same.
yeah, but his campaigns are so impressive in the fact that he puts so much time and effort into the story, but yet also keeps it so open.
Right, like, our characters can have fun and like go mess around, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there's still this like larger picture that we're all coming back to and is kind of like holding me on to keep playing.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. So, let's hop topics a little bit.
yes.
In the
Hot
beginning,
topic.
I had mentioned you are a great artist, and since art is
Mhm.
subjective, I can say that, and you can't respond with anything but thank you.
That
Um,
is- Go on.
um, I wonder, how does the art of a game affect your gaming experience?
Ooh. Well, so that is like why I like Wind Waker so much,
Mm,
because the art of that game alone, one is so unique in the Zelda series, and it's like, I guess my style is a little more graphic. So personally, like I really like the aesthetic
sure,
of Wind Waker. Um, but that is like such a huge thing for me in games. The visuals have to be good for me to also enjoy it.
sure, sure. Um, if you could pick one game or franchise to draw for, which would it be?
Oh man. Zelda, obviously, like that would be a fairly diverse like group you could work with because a
Sure.
lot of the games have different styles, but also things like Splatoons would be very fun to draw for.
Yeah,
Pokemon in general, like I drew Pokemon like as a child,
I love
like
it.
that would just be a fun nostalgia thing to do.
Yeah,
I guess like a lot of Nintendo's just work I do
sure,
enjoy.
sure. Yeah, I. It makes me wonder what what are your thoughts or feelings on games like Zelda versus Pokemon? So Pokemon, I think this, this is my opinion,
Hmm.
that the graphics have gotten better, but the art style hasn't changed. So,
Mm-mm.
there's sure if you look at sprites from like red and green to the sprites currently, like obviously there's differences, but realistically it's just improvements of technology to give you the same images. But Legend of Zelda, you like are very right. Like the art is so different from game to game. Like,
Hmm.
is there a reason you think it's that way, or do you have feelings about that? Just expand
Well,
upon those two things.
yeah. Well, so quick side note. I really want to agree with you on Pokemon, but the one thing that they've probably changed that like upsets me is
Yeah.
the way that they draw Pikachu.
Yes.
Like he used to be this like cuter
Uh
fat
huh.
blob, and
Yep.
like they've just like, I don't even know how to describe it. They just like gave him more shape and he's not just that blob
Uh
anymore.
huh. Yeah, they thinned him out.
Yeah, yeah. So like, and I mean, what was the Alolan Pokemon TV series? They kind of made Ash look different,
Oh yeah, you're right. You're
which
right.
I'm not like super mad about, but I think their changes are a lot more subtle than
Yeah.
Zelda's. Um, and I mean, I don't know if this is actually like the Legend of Zelda's intent, but I know for each game, it's like a it's all different in the timeline of the full like Hyrule history,
Right.
because like Link and Zelda's story just is constantly retold. So I wonder if stylistically they just do that for each story, each
Mm.
arc of Link and Zelda's.
Yeah. Yeah, because even if you look at I guess, yeah, I guess it is the most recent Link's Awakening, the remade
Mhm.
version for the Switch. Like, they took the game and all they changed was the art style.
Right. They
Um,
just pretty much 3D the sprites.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it feels like an almost entirely different game. That's why, like, I was very excited to have you as a guest because art in gaming, I think, is something that we just kind of take for granted. Like we don't really think
Yes.
about the fact. Well, you might, and I was going to mention this later, but
Uh-huh.
the average gamer might not be like, oh, someone had to sit and actually draw that, or what, like on a computer had to like 3D render that
Right.
model. Um, there's so
Right.
much, even concept art, that goes into something
Mm,
that is produced as a final image.
I don't think I have it here or on me at all. But I mean, looking through one of the Zelda books, like there's art
Mm,
books for a lot of video games, a lot of
yeah,
comics, and TV shows, like I have one for The Legend of Korra, and that's just like insane to look through. Or an animated movie, Into the Spider-Verse. I have that art book, and that's like it's crazy to see some of the styles that they initially started off with, or like even just their rough sketches,
Yeah.
to see what all even went into this final product that we enjoy for what, like 2 hours or something. For a movie at least, like
Right.
right, like I think it's something that people do take for granted, and like maybe just say like, oh well, art's just fun, like that's not really like hard or work, like they probably all just had fun
Right.
making this.
Right.
Not video game related, but I don't know if you saw a lot of the for the Sonic movie, a lot of the
Right.
backlash of the design for Sonic. Like,
Yeah.
sure, I agree that like that initial Sonic did not look good, but then you have to think about the turnaround the
Right.
designers and artists had to do.
Right.
And then it's like, you know, did they get proper pay for that and this and that? Like, it's not just like a quick easy thing you can draw out.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Me and Glenn were talking about this because I hadn't seen the Sonic movie until maybe a week ago.
Okay.
And you know, I love Sonic. I've been a huge fan because
Yes.
you know he's a staple of video game culture.
Right.
And Ben had seen it. I think like he said 6 or 7 times. Like he loves Sonic.
Oh wow.
And so yeah, me and Glenn had a very similar conversation where we were talking about this, and he had mentioned to me, I'm not sure how like where he had read this, but he said that the company had been very upfront with they were paying artists overtime to make it look the way that they wanted to change it to. Like they were very
Good.
adamant about that because it was such a big thing from the fans.
Yeah.
Which, you know, like you said, is I think super important because, you know, it's not like the artist or the artists working on it made a mistake. They were like, this is what, you know, we were told to draw, or this is what
Right.
was approved to be drawn.
Right. Like at the end of the day, a lot of artist work is just the job or commission. It's not something that they themselves are.
Right.
It's not their own project, you know? Like obviously if I'm doing my own like video game or comic or something, I can make things look the way I want. But if I'm working with a client, I have to make it look the way the client wants, even if I may not agree with it.
Yeah, sure. And I think, you know, people don't realize that it, even from a video game standpoint, like I said earlier, I have very limited knowledge when it comes to art, but I do understand that somebody draws concept art and then somebody else draws game art based on concept art. It's not always the same person. And so, you know, I know concept art is a big contracted thing. And as the concept artist, you're very much the front lines. And then someone's like, oh, that's a really cool concept. Now we're going to build this thing off of it. And so I think, you know, the backlash from Sonic came out because they had so much to draw from. You know, Sonic's not a new character by any means.
No, but I can imagine, like, you know, just even trying to think of, like, well, how do you take this 2D character and put him in a 3D world? Like, how do you stylize that? How do you make him look like the Sonic we know, but also, like, something living in that world?
Yeah. That's why, actually, you know, pulling it back to Pokemon, I was really upset when a lot of fans were pissed about Sword and Shield, because a lot of complaints that I heard were there wasn't the full Pokédex of Pokemon in Sword and Shield.
My God.
And I was like, listen, they had to 3D model every Pokemon that's in the game. So, like, sure, in Pokemon, like, Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu, there was essentially 3D models of the first 150. But, like, can you imagine doing, I think it's like 800 and something Pokemon now.
I was gonna ask. I don't even know how many we're at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, to do the 3D models, the sprites, like
Mm-hmm.
all the smaller detailed things for that, it's would be insane.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm not surprised it got to this point
Right.
of having to cut Pokemon out. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think it makes sense that Pokemon would be regional. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, not every single Pokemon is going to be in this island, this
Right.
place. Like,
Right. Yeah. I
that's
mean,
where I, it didn't bother me all that much.
yeah. I was in the same exact boat. People seem to forget that Ruby and Sapphire. So that's the first Pokemon game that like I remember understanding the story of.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
and so like in Ruby and Sapphire, they didn't have the whole Pokedex. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
have every single Pokemon from Gen 1 and Gen 2.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't really remember that. But, I still think Pokemon Sapphire is one of my favorite Pokemon games. I think it's so
Oh,
cool, and I love it. Um,
yeah, absolutely.
and so I feel like you're right. Like, the whole concept of regions is huge in Pokemon. And so why wouldn't it be that way? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if a handful of Pokemon are supposed to resemble animals in our real world, like whales migrate. So like
Right.
Lapras should not be in one spot only, but maybe a certain time of year it's in a different area. Like, we'll get to there maybe, but I like the idea of there being region specific Pokemon because of whether it's weather, environment, even I think they did a really good job with the new Pokemon in this game because their
Mm-hmm.
region specificity I think was emphasized, which
Yeah.
they started doing with the Alolan Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Being
that was really
yeah,
cool.
yeah, I
I
agree.
enjoyed I will not lie. I have not finished Pokemon Sword and Shield. I think partly because the storyline to
mm,
this one, I just nothing's like hooked me.
yeah, yeah,
I do enjoy the different scenery of this one, like the very UK clock
mm-hmm,
tower fields. Like I enjoyed it, but after the like first two gyms, I was like, okay,
yeah,
I'm not really nothing's holding my attention right.
yeah, yeah. As a as an adult, I didn't fully comprehend the plot. Like
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure why the the main villain was doing what he was doing. Like I just wasn't I didn't feel connected to his decisions.
Yeah.
Um and it I feel like they went off model because, every game is essentially the same. There's a team of
Yeah.
villains that's trying to do something with Pokemon to for some personal gain. And so I feel like they're like, "Oh, this guy isn't evil. He's trying to help the world." But like yeah, I just found myself very confused as a grown adult.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
like and I think that's the other aspect too is like being adults playing this, are we being too critical?
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I guess technically, what is this game still meant for like
Yeah.
10 to 14-year-olds, somewhere around there? Like,
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a huge point that I would love to spend a moment on cuz I as a player
mm-hmm.
and as someone who grew up playing Pokemon, and even games in general, like I look back and say, okay, as a kid I really enjoyed that. And since I grew up with it, I have the right, quote unquote, to
Right,
enjoy this game as an adult. But as a company, how do you manage those two audiences? How do you
right,
produce a game that will fit the new kid generation who is ultimately your audience, but will also
right,
please the 25 through 30-year-olds who played your game when they were kids?
right. That is like such a good question. I almost feel like, for this standard Pokemon game, like you
Yeah,
may just have to call it a loss on it as an adult. Like
sure.
I think they will continue to be meant for children's games, but maybe if they brought games back or styles of it like Pokemon Coliseum into the Switch now, where it's a little bit darker, a little bit more political and could appeal to the older audience. I feel like that would be really interesting to see as an
Mm.
adult. Um, but like that's where like I at the end of the day have to remind myself like when I want to be critical of Shield, like it's I have maybe grown out of this playing style, this
Yeah.
type of story.
Yeah. Yeah, I never really thought of it that way, but why not have spin-offs for different age groups of fans? Like, I look back at Twilight Princess for Legend of Zelda,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
there's more, grit and grunge to that. Even Majora's Mask, I felt like had
Oh
more
my god.
like grit to it, and like you witness freaking the Zoro die on the beach,
Right. That one's like
um
terrifying.
yeah, yeah. I remember as a kid, like the first time I put the mask on and you like scream, I had like
Right.
nightmares about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would love to see more. They don't have to be like adult games,
No.
but
Please actually don't.
yeah, please actually don't. But I wouldn't mind another Twilight Princess Zelda game, like a
Right.
little bit more fear and a little bit more like real to the concept itself. I think even
Right.
if you look at the trailer for the new Breath of the Wild.
That's exactly what I was gonna bring up.
Yeah.
Like, I think we will be getting something like that with this.
Mm.
If we're suspecting that's like zombie Ganon,
Right.
like that snaps his neck at you, like
Yeah.
I already the vibe of that trailer is kind of what I would be looking for. Something that's darker. Like, sure, we kind of got that in the first place with Breath of the Wild, but
Yeah.
I think this definitely will be taking it to the next level.
Yeah. I mean that all of that brings it back to the same idea of art is so important in the gameplay experience because that art style is what gives you that feeling. Like the art style of Twilight Princess is what gives me that feeling of grunge, of darkness, of it's not even necessarily the storyline that scares me so much. It's the way that the game is drawn. Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, have there been any games that you would not play because of the art?
So I will say, like, for a minute, Three Houses was actually getting to me.
Really?
Though, I mean, did you play as female Byleth?
I did not.
Okay, well, I don't know if you've seen any pictures online at least, but like the anatomy that they do in these like anime styled video games is just so like hurtful sometimes. Like
Interesting.
they made her chest look insane in some angles where it is like, how does that humanly work and sit on you? Like,
right.
So I think anatomy, not even just the style, but like things like that could easily get to me.
Sure.
But as far as like just a bad looking game,
I'll keep thinking, but it's a hard question because in theory, a game with bad art would not be popular enough to play.
Exactly. I feel like most of the ones that I know of have played, like, have either been tolerable or enjoyable.
Sure.
And even ones that I can think of, I think they only look bad now because they're outdated.
Sure.
Like, they just had the technology they did in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, what I see the comparison all the time with, like, Tomb Raider, her, like, the way they draw her. Like, sure, obviously, if that's, like, now, she wouldn't look like that now. That's just the technology they had.
Yeah.
People really have to, like, dig around, though, to find a game or something that just doesn't look good to me.
Yeah. Now, here's a question. I'm gonna phrase it as best as I can, and
Okay.
I hope you understand what I'm saying.
All right.
Growing up, I've had this experience multiple times with games
Okay.
where I, in my brain, I remember the game and I
Mhm.
think about the game, and then when I go and play it, in my head, it had such better graphics. So
Yes.
the example I'll give you is Paper Mario, which Paper Mario, I'll bring it back up again later, but that's one of my favorite games from an art perspective
Yes.
because they use the art as a gameplay mechanic, which I think is huge.
Yes.
Um, but I
But
look
what are
back
you?
at, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, what are you about to say?
No, I was just gonna
Favorite
say,
game.
I look back on N64 Paper Mario, and in my mind, for some reason, I envision N64 Paper Mario graphics, or sorry, GameCube Paper Mario graphics always. So then when I go back to
Mhm.
N64 and I play it, I'm like, whoa, this does not look like how I remember it. And it's not that the graphics are bad. I just have this weird experience where like I remember games having better graphics than they do,
Right.
and then I go back and play
Sorry.
them, and I'm like, whoa. Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea I'm getting at is, have you had an experience like that with games where you kind of remember them looking better, and then you go back and play them, and you're like, this isn't what I remembered.
Right. I I would maybe, because it's probably one of the ones I've most recently gone back to, is maybe Majora's Mask,
Okay.
just because of like I remember that being not as like sharp and angular, but then, looking at it now, it's like, oh, like the technology and visuals now have spoiled me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. No,
I haven't.
Yeah.
It's a game I haven't played, but it's one that really is interesting to see
Okay.
the visuals. Final Fantasy VII that recently just
Hmm.
came out.
Okay.
Seeing where they had come from, and like that's what you remember,
Yeah.
to now the game
Yeah.
that just came out, I can imagine that's insane. Like, that's actually one that before coronavirus all happened, I was watching Pat do a playthrough of like the old original Final Fantasy VII.
Sure.
So kind of watching through him, I was like, oh man, I like, this is insane to see. And he's like, yeah, I thought this like looked super good as a kid. Like, this was it. And
Yeah.
then like obviously when he was playing through it, it was like, oh man,
I love
this looks rough.
it. Yeah. Yeah. I totally understand that for sure.
Hmm.
If if you had to pick one game,
Okay.
which game would you say, or which art of a game would you say spoke to you the most? Art being as subjective as it is.
Right. It's a game that like I unfortunately haven't played yet, just because I've been distracted by Animal Crossing and
Sure.
other things. Um, but one I'm like really waiting to get into is Hellblade. I'm
Ah.
sure you've heard at least Pat talk about
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Um, that's another one that like just has a super grungy, darker style to it that like the animation just looks really good for it.
Yeah.
And also seeing the trailer for the second one that's coming out, that also looks like insane.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the like, it's very like Celtic, demonic, like
Yeah. Yeah. I think Pat
chanting.
showed it to me.
Yeah,
I think so.
like
Yeah.
that's one I'm excited to get into just for like the style of it alone.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's huge. That's cool. I think
Hmm.
that even lends more to the artists of the game, being so enthralled with a potential game based solely on what you've seen in a trailer. I think it's really cool.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, which I mean, you gotta have those dynamic shots and
yeah,
stuff in the trailers to even catch people. Like
right, right,
that is super important.
yeah,
Um, I can even say that for the second Breath of the Wild game, like that those visuals looked so good.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Let's change gears a bit. I want
Yeah.
to ask about cosplay.
Oh, yes.
Um, do you typically cosplay characters from games or other media?
I think the only like video game cosplay I have at the moment is Samus, Zero Suit Samus.
Okay.
Everything else is either a like comic book character, so like Spider Gwen, Captain
Mm,
Marvel.
sure.
Um, I have one from Critical Role, that D&D campaign.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So not unless I'm missing someone.
yeah.
Oh, I also have Snake, from Smash.
Okay,
Or
yeah.
here specifically, we were going for a Bros group, but
Okay.
um, yeah, like it's not always just video game centric for me, and it's not.
Sure.
I don't even think I like for majority of the conventions I go to that are considered anime. I don't
Yeah.
think I have a single anime cosplay.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's a great segue though. My next question was going to be about conventions.
Yes.
I
Oh boy.
know that you have been to a fair number of them. Um, do you think, on a whole, we'll start there, that
Mhm.
conventions have been declining, rising, or staying in the same over the past few years?
I definitely. I mean, even for me, like I got into cosplay and conventions just within the last few years, so I
Sure.
think I definitely see a rise in it, especially because it's been a little more normalized, not just for like the like specific group of people I'm imagining, like
Yeah.
the fedora bros or like
Right.
it's definitely, I feel like, opened up, and it's not as like weird or nerdy to go do. I think I'm afraid to see, after all of this COVID stuff, how
Mm,
it's going to affect conventions.
yeah. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. That's so true. At our house, Ben has been constantly talking about theme parks and how
Hmm.
are they gonna open this summer and what's it gonna look like. But I didn't even think about conventions. Like nobody's gonna want to go to these big,
No,
huge gatherings of people.
no, because like, again, not to like stereotype some of the groups that go, but like hygiene is not always great
Sure,
at conventions. So,
sure.
me as a con goer, that is something that I would just personally worry about. Like, I know my level of hygiene, but I would be concerned about the people you come into very tight quarters with.
Mm,
Um, and that's just me as like a cosplayer. I couldn't imagine being an artist there, which is something I would have eventually wanted to do, but now I have to even rethink that. Like, I
yeah.
don't know if I'd want to sell at a booth
Right. Dang.
because you're so close to not just like sure you have your table kind of spacing you out between you and like the convention goers, but behind that table you are very tightly packed to the
Yeah.
other artists.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
So
think it's so hard because the concept of conventions for me is huge because you take something so ethereal like a video game
Mhm.
where other people created a different world that you participate in,
Hmm.
So to be able to like meet those people or participate with those people in some way who've created this world, whether it's, you know, through their characters or through the people themselves, I think is huge for gamers.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't even think about the impact of COVID on both the con goers and the people who would be running booths.
Right. Well, that's like even for too many games coming up. I think July, June. Don't quote me on that.
Sure.
Um, the voice for Snake, the voice actor, he
Okay.
was going to be there, and specifically, like, I am pretty sure you saw the TikTok of
Yeah.
him doing the dummy thick Snake
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah.
I was so excited to get into my dummy thick Snake cosplay and go meet him as that. But yeah, like, obviously now I don't think they've made the call yet, but
Right.
I don't see conventions happening this year.
Yeah.
Otakon, such a big convention, had canceled it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's definitely going to make things going forward more interesting. Like, are we going to stay on this virtual meeting path? Like,
Right.
is that how you would maybe meet your voice actors now or now? Like,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's so true.
Right. So, like, even just to gaming now, it's so interesting to see already the impact of some things.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Because,
Um
like, it may actually be good for me because I have games I bought but just haven't, like, had the time to play them. But does that mean, like, we won't have a lot of new games coming out?
right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I often mention how like crucial Animal Crossing's timing was.
Yes.
I mean, you know, they didn't plan it because you can't plan something like that. But
No.
like, it's crazy because they pushed back the release date of the game. It was supposed to come out 2 months earlier, but they pushed it
Right.
back to March. And
Right.
it's crazy to think about. I don't think it would have exploded the way that it did if it came out 2 months earlier.
No. Like, I have friends who, like, solely bought a Switch
Mm-hmm.
just for this game.
Yep. Yeah. I know people who, even like, I look at Emily, and I know Emily not as a gamer,
Right.
but is tempted to buy a Switch because she likes Animal Crossing so much.
Right. Right. And, like, yeah, would it have done as well had we not all been trapped in our house
Right.
for 2-3 months?
Right.
Like, I mean, you would obviously have your Animal Crossing fans that would have been there
Right.
for it. But yeah, would people like Emily or I'm trying to think of someone else. Our friend Kate, who
Yeah.
doesn't play at all, but we helped chip in for a Switch for her so we could play Animal Crossing with her while she's in California. Like,
Right.
would that opportunity for them have been there?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
All right. Last question I have for you.
Yes.
Which game that you've played has affected your real life the most?
Ooh. Animal Crossing right now, yes, like it's given me the opportunity to like be hanging out with you guys and like
Sure.
other friends. As far as like left an impact on me, affected my life, like
Yeah.
I would have to go back to Life is Strange on this, or
Sure.
oh, it was like a what was it called? Heavy Rain, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that was when I played with a group of my friends, and we did a very interesting like play style for this, so that we could all participate. We were each assigned like you play as this character when he pops up, you play as this character when he pops up, like because it rotates
Right.
as you like play as each person. So that was very interesting to
Yeah.
play it that way. And then that also just had a very surprising ending. It was just kind of like sadder game.
Sure.
Same as Life is Strange. Like that one, I feel like hit a little more closer to home because they were like teenage, like younger, relatable girls. So like I could picture myself more in their shoes, and then just then imagining and like actually literally being put in their shoes, like having to make certain decisions. It does like kind of question like, well, what would I really do in this situation?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
Which
true.
you definitely should look into playing it. It's
Yeah.
such a good game, such a good concept.
Yeah. No, to wrap it up, I think for me that's a huge crux of what gaming is the choice aspect of the game. Like, yeah, there's a very clear storyline and there's a very clear definition of, A to B, but at the same time, you are the person making the choices, which I think is what always drew me to video games.
Right.
Even if it's a strict storyline, you're still the person making those decisions.
Right.
And I loved participating in the story in that way. And so
It's much more personalized and
yeah,
involving, and yeah, I
yeah,
completely agree.
yeah. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for
Yeah.
being on the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. Such
Yeah,
an honor.
I hope you enjoyed your time.
Yes.
And like I said with most of the guests at this point, my goal, is to get a bunch of different people on the show. But I would like to eventually, at some point, come back around and do a round 2 with the same guests. And because games are always changing, so
Right, because exactly what we were talking about earlier, who knows, we'll be in video games a month or two from now.
yeah, yeah. Who knows what's gonna happen
Yeah.
next? So for sure.
Exactly. I'll be here for round 2.
I love it. I love it. Thanks again, Rachel, and I
Yeah.
had a blast.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Hey everyone. Thank you so much for watching episode 3. I hope you enjoyed the conversation between me and Rachel. I loved the art concepts we were talking about and the idea of experiencing a game differently based on your view of art and the way it's drawn. So I hope you enjoyed it as well. And I hope you have enjoyed the other 2 interviews and you are looking forward to more. I have plans for one each week, and I'm looking forward to showing them and sharing those videos and podcasts with you. Remember, you can also listen to this as a podcast on really anywhere podcasts are found: Spotify, Google Podcast, iTunes. And thank you again for watching, and feel free to share so more people can hear and participate in the dialogue of gaming. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next video.